On March 29th, 1984, Baltimore Colts packed up everything into the now famous Mayflower moving vans and left Baltimore all in one night. But why did they leave so fast and so quickly? We'll dive into the story behind how the Colts ended up in Indianapolis today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. Now, the Baltimore Colts have been successful since their team started in 1953. They had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Johnny Unitas, and won a Super Bowl. But the biggest problem they had was their stadium, Memorial Stadium, which was built originally in the 1920s. Continuously needed renovations. There was always challenges to get that done. The Colts actually used to be owned by Carroll Rosenblum. And in 1969, he had had so many issues with the stadium and the condition that he didn't want to continue paying rental fees on it. So he even considered building his own stadium with his own money at a new location. But he got tired of fighting with the city and the state over funding, so he actually made an unusual move. He traded franchises with Robert Irsay, who owned the LA Rams. And Robert Irsay comes in and immediately wants to update the stadium. And they even put together a plan to build the Balto Dome. Similar to the Astrodome, it would be a $75 million complex that would house football, baseball, hockey, and basketball. But they could never get the funding for it. And they continued to have issues with the stadium. And starting in 1975, Robert Irsay started to shop around for locations that he could move to as they consistently asked for funding to help the stadium and got no funding in result. They went to places such as Memphis, Jacksonville, Birmingham, Phoenix, and Indianapolis. Irsay made a final push, and at one point they almost got the funding they needed. They requested $25 million to help renovate the stadium, and they got $23 million approved, but it required the Colts and the Baltimore Orioles of the MLB to also sign long-term leases. But the Orioles didn't want to be part of this, as the renovations would not actually help for the baseball aspect of it, and they wanted to have their own stadium. Irsay refused to sign long-term as well, and they each went on a yearly basis. Then in 1984, with pressure from the city and state coming, with negotiations with the state of Maryland going nowhere continuously, Irsay had had enough. And he was given permission from the other NFL owners to move his franchise to the city of his choosing. And he had narrowed it down to Phoenix or Indianapolis, getting pitches from both of them. But on March 27, 1984, the Maryland Senate passed legislation giving Baltimore the right to seize the Colts due to eminent domain. Eminent domain is the power for the state to take over private property for public use. It is most commonly used to take over roads or government buildings, and has been used for many railroads, but had never been used in this aspect before to keep a team. But Baltimore was desperate not to lose the Colts, as they knew they'd been shopping around. This caused Robert Irsay and his son, now owner of the Colts, Jim Irsay, to jump into action. And they called a friend of theirs that owned a Mayflower moving company back in Indiana, and asked for as many trucks as they could get to Baltimore as quickly as possible. And they hired local college students to pack up everything they had, because if the Colts were no longer in Maryland, the state could not seize anything. Even while they were loading the trucks, which took a little more than 8 hours, they weren't completely sure where they were going. They didn't tell the drivers where they were going before they left. And that afternoon, Phoenix actually pulled their offer, worried about what the Senate's legislation would do to the team. So the Colts accepted Indianapolis offers, giving the Colts owners over $12 million loan, a $4 million training complex, plus the use of the brand new Hoosier Dome, which seated over 55,000 people, giving them a new stadium they've always wanted. But the Ursays were still worried about Maryland taking possession of the Colts, so loading up the now famous pictures of those Mayflower trucks. They told the 15 drivers to all go in different directions and not take the main highway until they got out of Maryland. They were worried that the state police might stop them and delay the chances of them getting to their new city. After they got out of the state of Maryland, they were all able to head straight over to Indiana. And once they entered Indiana, they were police escorted to their new training facility. Now, this was a little bit of a shady tactic to keep Maryland from getting what they wanted, but the Ursays came to an agreement with the city of Baltimore and told them they were going to endorse a team in Baltimore if there was ever a chance for expansion in the NFL, which we all know did happen, as Baltimore are now the Ravens, which they came over from Cleveland, and that's a whole other story for another day. Thank you for listening to today's Daily Sports History. If you like this, please rate and review wherever you're listening. We'd love to hear how much you're enjoying the show, and that way we can make the show even better for you in the coming days. So come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.